Hello, lovely people of the interwebs. It's me, Emery Ann. So today, I wanted to film a video of a story that I think would be mildly entertaining, because I found it kind of entertaining. The story of how I found out I was autistic. If you're a longtime subscriber and you weren't aware of this, don't worry, neither was I. But since this is the first time I'm sharing this with you outside of a throwaway line in a video I just uploaded, I am autistic. Specifically, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, according to my older sister, when I was about 8. But Asperger's is no longer considered an actual diagnosis because it has been absorbed into autism spectrum disorder. So I am still autistic. They just don't diagnose people with Asperger's anymore. A few reasons for that. First of all, because the differences in symptoms weren't really big enough to warrant its own diagnosis. And also, Hans Asperger was a terrible human being. He was a eugenicist who worked with the Nazis and also didn't think girls could be autistic. So, yeah, pretty problematic. If we were to get specific, I have Asperger's, but just in general, I am autistic. Those of you who are wondering, because people care about these kinds of things, I'm high functioning, or at least what people consider high functioning. What this would mean in regards to a diagnosis means that my autism isn't as explicitly noticeable to people from the outside to the degree where it would affect my life negatively. I can live my life without people really having to think about me being autistic. The autism community, we kind of have a problem with the term high functioning because it insinuates that there is a straight line for being autistic, which there isn't. It's a variety of symptoms that everybody presents differently and they have to different severities. So I can be high functioning and still have a severe symptom. High functioning is really just a term for you can't tell I'm autistic, which, fun fact, is because of masking, which is where you learn to mimic the patterns and behaviors of the people around you, hiding your real habits and behavior. Essentially, it's putting on a mask, hiding parts of yourself to come across as more quote-unquote normal or neurotypical, which is what people consider normal. Now, I only found out about a month or two ago. Almost 3 months now, I think, around that time. And that is the story I'm here to tell you about today, because you may be wondering, wait, Emery, if you were diagnosed at 8, how come you've only known for 2 months when you're 19? That is an excellent question, and the answer I aim to tell you today. For those of you who don't know, or can't tell by the background, I live in a college dorm currently. And when you live in a college dorm, they require you to get certain vaccinations so that you are keeping yourself and everyone else in the area safe. One of those vaccinations is meningitis vaccine. You have to have it after a certain date and before you move into the dorm so that you can live in the dorm. So, since I'm an adult, I went to the doctor by myself. First time I've been to the doctor in 4 years. One thing that they do, I don't know if they do this with every visit, but with my first visit specifically, because it was my first visit, they wrote up a summary of the visit, which also listed, like my height, my weight, any changes, things that I had been diagnosed with, and ongoing problems. That is where we come into the crux of the whole situation. So I get the vaccine, I get the report paper, and I go home. I don't look at it because I thought I knew everything that was going on with me, so I didn't think I really needed to. So, my older sister, who is currently in her last semester of nursing school, wanted to look at the report because nursing school. She wanted to make sure knew what the terminology meant, those kinds of things. So I let her. And then the next day, I thought, I should probably read it. I'm kind of curious. I want to know how much about me the doctor knows. It's been 4 years since I've been to the doctor. Let's see what it is. So I pick up the sheet. I look through the sheet. There's like the height, the weight kind of stuff, the age. And then I get to the section that lists problems, which was just a simplified term to say diagnoses. So I am scanning through the paper. I'm reading through it. I see the things that I expect, like generalized anxiety disorder, attention hyperactive deficit disorder, mild depression, dyslexia, those things. And then I get to the bottom of the list. And on the bottom of the list says the words Asperger's syndrome. And this is where the story gets funny, because you see, my parents were out for their nightly walk, and my younger sister was out with friends. So it was just me and my older sister at home. Our rooms are both upstairs, and my room is on one side of the hall, her room is on the other. So in my shock, I yelled, Asperger's syndrome! I remembered she read the report yesterday, and I was like, why didn't she mention this? So I jump out of bed, throw open my door, sprint down the hallway, kick open her door, slide into her room and go, apparently, I'm autistic! And she just looks at me with, like a little bit of a laugh, the kind of laugh that someone would have when you heard someone yell Asperger's and then the sound of feet thudding down the hallway and then your door was thrown open. And she just goes, you didn't know? And I went, no! No one ever told me! And she was like, what? We've known since you were 8. Mom and Dad sat us down and told us that you were autistic, and so we had to be careful how we treated and talked to you because you process things differently. And I was like, oh my God. I feel so vindicated. Because here's the thing. I have a few friends who are autistic. I'm very active on the internet. I'm very active specifically in activist environments, and I am very big in mental health. So I had seen symptoms. I had seen, posts that people would make about their autism, and I would participate in Autism Acceptance Month, and every year I would see this tweet thread that said, hey, if you identify with one or more of these symptoms, you're probably autistic, especially if you are a girl or an adult. And I would read the list, and I would identify with almost every single symptom listed. However, I had also seen a lot on the internet about how ADHD and autism symptoms tend to overlap, and I really didn't want to self-diagnose, because I had heard so many bad things about self-diagnosis, and I didn't want to take away resources or anything from people who actually needed them, and I didn't want people taking my word for it if I was wrong. So I would just brush it off and assume, no, I'm not autistic. I just have ADHD. I'm reading too far into things. So when I found out that I've been autistic this whole time, I felt vindicated. I thought that explains a lot, and I also felt kind of upset. Not that I was autistic, but that I went my whole life with no one telling me these things. Because here's the thing about the type of person that I am. I'm the type of person who, if I do something and I don't know why I do it, I'm not going to know how to handle it. I can try things, but if I know the source behind my actions or my behaviors or my attitudes or my personality or anything like that, I know where to look at it from. I know how to go, this is not related to this. And then I can move forward. I can handle these issues better if I know what's going on with me. So, I felt like I've missed out on a lot. Because there were a lot of things that I did as a kid that I didn't know why I did them. I thought it made me strange and abnormal, and I learned to hide it, the masking. So, you may be wondering, where did I go from there? Well, the first thing I did was I texted my friend, because my friend is autistic, and she also has specifically Asperger's syndrome. And so I texted her because I was like, oh my gosh, same hat. So I texted her and I was like, apparently I'm autistic. And she says, yeah, I know. And I had the same reaction of, what? Here's the thing. We became friends when I started high school because my mother taught this girl how to parallel park, and she was friends with her mom, and me and this girl had a lot in common. And so my mom told her about me when she was teaching her how to parallel park, and I was going to join the choir, and this girl was in the choir. And so the story that I had heard was that my mom asked her, to talk to me, and then we ended up becoming friends. Apparently, that's not all my mother told her. Apparently, my mother specifically said, I also have a daughter with Asperger's. And Peyton also thought that I knew. So that was a shock. And then I also found out, apparently all of my teachers knew, and so did the school nurses. And I was just sitting there like, has my psychologist known this whole time and never brought it up with me? Did she think that I knew? So I went around and I asked some of my aunts, because I was like, okay, how many people know about this? So I asked my aunts, 2 of them, and they didn't know. I asked my younger sister, had much of the same reaction that my older sister had, where she was like, how did you not know? And I was like, no one told me, and I've spent the past 4 years denying it. I did a little bit more Googling and research, basic research, to make sure that I had all the facts involved. I waited a couple of days, and then I confronted my parents about it. Here's the thing about that. I had a feeling I knew how it was going to go, because I found out I had anxiety my freshman year of high school. That's another thing my parents have known I've had for a very long time. And my mother didn't tell me. I had a feeling her reasoning for keeping this from me was going to be the same as her keeping my anxiety from me. She told me when my freshman year, when I found out that I had anxiety, I found out because she told my psychologist the first time I saw her, when we were in there together, when the psychologist was like, okay, like, blah, 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 why are we here? What is she up? And she said, oh, well, she was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder when she was in 1st grade. And I just went, I'm sorry, what? I was what? When I asked her, hey, why didn't you tell me I had this thing in regards to the anxiety? She told me, and I quote, I didn't want you using it as a crutch. Yeah. I had a feeling that was going to be the reasoning why my parents never told me. So I got my information together, I got the paper, I got the proof, I got calm and in a good place of mind, and then I told them in pretty much the same format that I've told you, how I went to the doctor, I got the sheet, and I saw it on the sheet. And then I said, why did you never tell me? And my mother, as I suspected, said, well, first, we didn't want you to use it as a crutch. And I was like, I had a feeling. Then she told me that it's because they never had me in for any actual, official tests. Because, according to everybody I'd ever seen, they didn't need to because I was so high functioning. And that's one of the reasons I don't like the term high functioning. Because if I had been tested for this, officially, and I had known about it because I would have done the tests, I could have handled this. I could have gotten help that I needed. But I didn't, because people didn't think my autism affected them enough for me to need to know about it. So I never knew about it. The reason all my teachers knew is because every single teacher I have ever had has brought up at parent-teacher conferences, I think Emery is autistic. Maybe you should see about getting her tested. And then they have to go, yes, she is. We've known. She doesn't. Don't worry. We got it figured out. She's good. So that's why all of my teachers and the school nurses knew. And then my parents also told me, and I also find this kind of funny, they were also surprised I didn't know. They told me they could have sworn that by now I had overheard them talking about it and figured it out for myself, and I knew, and they were waiting for me to ask about it. They also thought this whole time that I'd figured it out and I knew. And it's kind of hilarious. I talked to my psychologist, who my parents had told me when I started seeing her, they brought up, hey, based on literally everything else that we've seen and everyone else we've talked to and every other therapist she's seen, because I've seen counselors and therapists. I'd never seen a psychologist until I started high school. They all think she probably has Asperger's. Can you keep an eye out for that? But she's never been actually tested. So, after only a few sessions, my psychologist went to my parents and said, oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that this girl has Asperger's. She is autistic. But no need to get tested. Everything that she has a problem with that seems to be related to the autism, we're already working on and improving. Which was true. And I love my psychologist. She's great. She's the best. If she had realized that this was something I felt I needed to know, she would have told me. If she had thought I hadn't known, she would have told me. But she thought I did. And I just never brought it up in sessions because I didn't know. And she never did either. I do my Zoom session with her and I'm like, so I found something out right after our last session. She was like, oh really, what? And I was like, turns out I'm autistic. And she went, oh. And she had to think back because a lot of this stuff we've been working on for 4 years. I've been seeing her for the past 4 years. She went, yes, I do remember telling your parents that. I do remember, and you definitely do have the symptoms. And then, like, we spent that entire session talking about it, talking about how I reacted, how I found out, all of that jazz, the symptoms that I had, how they displayed, all of that stuff. And I went from there. And I like knowing. Because let me clarify something. A lot of neurotypical people, partially because of organizations like Autism Speaks, which paint this disorder as a horrible, horrible curse, that's what they think it is. They think it is a horrible curse to have to live with and a burden to bear, and that in some cases, people literally think it's better to be dead than to be autistic. It's not. Autism isn't something to cure. None of us want it cured. Not even people who are considered low functioning or severe. It's part of who we are. It's part of who I am. I wouldn't be the same person I am today if I wasn't autistic. I wouldn't be so passionate about things that I'm passionate about. I wouldn't care so much about people. I wouldn't look at the world the same way. I wouldn't have the same interests, the same passions, the same drives, the same needs. I would be a completely different person. And I like who I am. I wouldn't change a thing about myself, especially not the autism. Are there parts of myself I'm still working on? Yes, absolutely. No one is ever completely done working on themselves. Everyone always has something that they need to work on. But parts of my personality, I wouldn't change. I'm happy. And it explains so much. And now that I know which things are because of it and what I need to work on more. This is a part of myself that I like, that I want people to know about. I don't want to hide it. My mother is still slightly of the idea that I should. Not that I should be ashamed of it or that I should think it's a bad thing, but that it doesn't need to be talked about. But that's the thing, it does. We need better representation of autistics in the media. We need better representation of autistics on the internet. Because if I had seen someone like me that presented the way that I did, I might have figured it out sooner. I might have stopped denying sooner, and I could have known about this way earlier. And there is no right way to be autistic. People think there is because there's only like 3 or 4 ways it's portrayed in media. That's not true. There's so many different ways to be autistic, and all are just as real and valid as the rest. And people need to know that. People need to hear our voices, not the voices of neurotypicals speaking for us that we never ask them to do, like Autism Speaks. Autism Speaks doesn't have a single autistic person on staff. They don't listen to autistic people. They don't actually speak for any of us. We have our own organizations to do that. And I will continue to talk about this. I will not hide. I will not be ashamed. I will not let people continue to think this is some horrible curse, because it's not. I see the world in a completely different way than other people. Now, I'm not some savant. I'm not Sheldon Cooper. I'm not the good doctor. I am not the accountant. I'm Emery. I am a human with complex feelings and emotions. I'm not a robot. I'm an autistic woman. We exist. We are severely underdiagnosed, but we exist. And until people stop looking for a cure for autism, until people stop refusing to vaccinate their children because they're afraid they'll be like me, until people accept that this is just another way to be human, I will continue to talk about it. And I will continue to be proud and wear it across my chest if I have to. I know these things about myself now. And I'm not going to let anyone forget them. People may think I'm using it as a crutch by talking about it, but I'm not. I don't want extra sympathy because I'm autistic. I don't want special treatment because I'm autistic. I want understanding. That's all that I want. I want people to understand that maybe I do things differently because I'm autistic. And I want them to understand that's not a bad thing. And that I wouldn't change myself for the world. So yeah, that is my autism diagnosis story. If you want more stories, I have quite a few. I know this isn't my usual type of content, I just felt like it needed to be shared. So, I shared it. I will try and do a singing video at some point soon. I have to figure that out because these walls are very thin, so I gotta figure out a time when I'm not gonna disturb my neighbors. But yeah. Still don't have a microphone or anything like that, but yeah. Maybe I'll add one to an Amazon wishlist. Maybe one of my friends will buy me one. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you lovely people for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. Let me know in the comments and I will make more like this because I like telling these kinds of stories. I like telling stories. It's fun. Yeah, let me know what you want to see next. Let me know what you think. Did you know these things about autism? Did you kind of clock before? Did you look at me and go, huh, you know, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. That tracks. Or was my masking good? I don't know. Let me know. Yeah. Thank you, lovely people, for tuning in. Now, I gotta bounce. Bye.